You say yes when you mean no, and feel a quiet resentment building inside. Someone makes a demand, and your peace shatters. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus offers a different path, stating that some things are within our power, while others are not. Your opinions, your impulses, your desires, and your aversions are truly your own. This video will show you how to build an unshakable inner citadel that others intuitively respect without a single difficult conversation. We will explore the core Stoic principles of control, virtue, and emotional mastery to create boundaries that are felt, not just stated. What does it truly mean to have something within your power? The first stone in your inner citadel is built from a simple, profound distinction. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. This is the core Stoic principle known as the Dichotomy of Control, and it is the absolute foundation for any boundary that others will feel. Epictetus opens his Enchiridion with this very idea. Your own judgments, your impulses, your desires, and your actions, these are your sovereign territory. Everything else, from the weather to another person's opinion, from your reputation to the past itself, belongs to the realm of the external. It is not yours to command. Think of someone making a critical remark. Their words, the sound in the air that is outside your control. It has happened, but your internal reaction, your assessment of that criticism, your decision to be wounded or unmoved, that is your exclusive domain. This is where your invisible boundary forms. It is not a wall built to stop the remark from happening. It is the unshakable ground you stand on when it does. Where in your own life are you exhausting yourself by trying to command the uncontrollable? Are you straining to manage a colleague's mood or fretting over a comment made yesterday? That effort is a leak in your walls. True strength begins the moment you stop trying to hold back the ocean and instead learn to stand firm on the shore. Marcus Aurelius wrote of a citadel within, a fortress of the soul that remains untroubled even as the world outside clamors and storms. This is not a physical place, but a state of mind built brick by brick through the daily practice of reason. When your sense of peace and self-respect becomes independent of what others say or do, you have constructed something truly unbreachable. The invisible boundary others feel is not a fence you erect against them. It is the sheer, imposing wall of your own composure. Think of a colleague who is the subject of office gossip. The chatter swirls around them, yet they remain focused, calm, and professionally kind. They do not lash out or desperately defend themselves. Their work ethic is unwavering, their character consistent. What the gossips are encountering is not a person who is merely ignoring them, but a person whose inner citadel is so strong that their opinions simply cannot gain entry. That unshakable core communicates a powerful, silent message. This is who I am, and your words cannot redefine me. This strength is cultivated through small, consistent choices. It is the choice to respond with reason instead of reacting with raw emotion. It is the decision to act with integrity even when no one is watching. Every time you align your actions with your virtues, you lay another stone in your wall. So what is one small habit you can start today to strengthen your own inner citadel? Perhaps it is pausing for 3 deep breaths before answering a provoking email. Maybe it is consciously refusing to participate in negative talk about another person. This single practice, repeated daily, becomes the mortar that holds your entire fortress together. What if the greatest violation of your boundaries is not something someone says to you, but something you silently say to yourself? The Stoics identified a critical inner gatekeeper they called Assent. Assent is your power to approve or reject the initial impressions that flood your mind. Every external event, every word from another person, arrives first as a raw, uninterpreted impression. It is in that fleeting moment before you grant your assent that your true boundary is either fortified or breached. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that our perceptions are entirely up to us. You do not have to accept the label another person tries to place upon you. Think of opening an email filled with angry, accusatory words. The initial impression might be one of shock, hurt, or anger. That impression is automatic, and you cannot control its arrival, but now comes your power. You can choose to assent, to internally agree with the accusation, and let that anger become your own, effectively inviting the sender's turmoil past your gates. Or you can withhold your assent. You can observe the words on the screen and say to yourself, this is their frustration, their bad day, their opinion. I see it, but I do not have to make it my truth. By refusing to internalize the emotion, you create an immediate, invisible boundary that the negativity cannot cross. The email exists, but its power to disrupt your peace is a power you choose to give it. Tomorrow, you will undoubtedly face a negative impression, perhaps a critical glance or a demanding request. Your practice is to create a single moment of pause between the impression and your reaction. In that quiet space, ask yourself, is this impression a fact I must accept, or merely an opinion I can let pass? This simple act of questioning is you standing guard at the gate of your own mind. Your very character can become the boundary that others instinctively honor. The most powerful limits are not spoken but lived, radiating from a life aligned with the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. When your actions consistently reflect these qualities, you are not just setting a rule, you are embodying a standard. This is what Seneca meant when he wrote of living in accordance with nature, which for a rational human being means living with virtue. Your nature is to be reasonable, courageous, and fair. To act against that is to violate your own inner boundary first. A leader who is respected without demanding it provides a clear example. They do not need to constantly assert their authority or remind others of their position. Their fairness in decisions demonstrates justice. Their calm in a crisis reveals courage. Their thoughtful choices show wisdom. Their restraint from overindulgence reflects temperance. People do not cross this person lightly, not because they fear a reprimand, but because they respect the unwavering moral ground the leader stands upon. This self-respect, forged in virtue, is what the outside world ultimately mirrors back to you. It signals that you value your own principles too highly to compromise them for convenience or approval. So which of these four virtues could you strengthen to build a more resilient personal boundary? Is it the courage to speak your truth with kindness, or the temperance to walk away from a pointless argument? Choose just one. Make that virtue your silent guardian for the coming week, and observe how your very presence begins to communicate a limit that requires no explanation. Freedom is not the satisfaction of every desire, but the mastery of which ones you choose to entertain. This leads us to the profound Stoic discipline of desire, a practice that fortifies your boundaries by addressing their most common point of failure, your own misplaced longings. So many of the times we feel our limits have been crossed, the real breach occurred within, when we handed over our inner peace in exchange for something we could not control. The desire for universal approval, for a specific outcome, for someone else to change their behavior, these are all traps. They make your state of mind a hostage to external events. Epictetus put it with stunning clarity: he is free who lives as he wishes, who cannot be compelled, hindered, or constrained, whose impulses are not frustrated, whose desires attain their goal, whose aversions do not fall into what they would avoid. This freedom is not won by controlling the world, but by aligning your desires exclusively with what is virtuous and within your power. Your goal shifts from wanting to be liked, which you cannot control, to wanting to act with integrity, which you can. It moves from craving a promotion which depends on another's decision, to committing to excellent and virtuous work, which is entirely your own domain. This internal shift is a game changer. When you no longer desperately need someone's approval, their disapproval loses its power to wound you. When you are not attached to a specific reward, you cannot be manipulated with the promise of one. Your invisible boundary becomes impenetrable because it is no longer contingent on the outside world delivering what you want. Think about a single desire that currently holds a piece of your peace captive. Is it the desire for a partner to act differently, or for a colleague to recognize your contribution? Now, consider the weight that would lift if you consciously released that specific outcome and redirected your desire solely toward your own virtuous response. That is the essence of Stoic freedom. It is the quiet, unshakable power that comes from wanting only what you can already give yourself. Not every thought needs a voice. In the architecture of your inner citadel, silence is a formidable gate, and your speech, the selective opening of that gate. The Stoics prized measured communication not as a suppression of self, but as a powerful assertion of it. When you speak less, your words carry more weight, and your composure becomes a visible signal of your inner boundaries. Seneca captured this perfectly, observing that a timely silence is more powerful than any speech. This is not about withholding your truth, but about choosing the right ground on which to defend it. Imagine a family gathering where a relative makes a deliberately provocative comment designed to get a reaction. The initial impression is one of offense. The urge to retort is strong, but you pause. You withhold your assent from that initial emotional charge. Instead of engaging on their chaotic terms, you offer a simple, neutral acknowledgement or even a calm silence. You have not agreed with them, nor have you surrendered your position. You have simply chosen not to deplete your energy in a battle you know you cannot win. In that refusal to play the game, you have maintained a boundary of profound peace. Your silence becomes the unbreachable wall their provocation cannot scale. Can you recall a recent conversation where your words escalated a conflict, where a peaceful silence might have been the stronger response? That is the power you always hold, the choice to not engage, to conserve your energy for what truly serves your virtue and peace. This conscious restraint is the final, practical expression of the boundaries you have built from within. There is a profound difference between fearing the worst and being prepared for it. The Stoics practiced something called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of troubles. This is not about expecting disaster or living in anxiety. It is a mental vaccination, a way to inoculate your mind against future disturbances by rehearsing your virtuous response in advance. Seneca advised us to expose ourselves in imagination to all the things that might happen, so that when they do, we have already walked through the scenario and are not caught off guard. By anticipating a potential boundary crossing, you strip it of its power to shock you. You have already decided how you will stand your ground. Think of a difficult conversation you have been avoiding. Instead of dreading the moment, you can use this practice. Sit quietly and mentally walk into that room. See the other person. Hear the critical words they might say, the unreasonable demand they might make. Now watch yourself in this mental rehearsal. You do not flare up in anger. You do not crumble in fear. You breathe, you remember your inner citadel, and you respond with calm reason. You hold your boundary not with aggression, but with unshakable composure. You are preparing your mind just as an athlete prepares their body through repetition. When the actual moment arrives, it feels familiar. The sting is gone because you have already faced it in the safety of your own mind and emerged with your virtue intact. Your peace is no longer contingent on everything going smoothly. It is rooted in your unshakable confidence that you can handle whatever comes. So what is one upcoming situation where you feel your boundaries might be tested? Spend a few minutes today not worrying about it, but mentally rehearsing your calm and steadfast response. See yourself maintaining your composure, holding to your principles, and walking away with your inner peace undisturbed. This is how you build a boundary of preparedness that turns potential chaos into practiced grace. A cancelled plan feels like a rejection, a tear in the social fabric you worked so hard to weave. But what if you could see it not as a violation, but as an invitation? This is the radical heart of Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. It is the ultimate Stoic practice of embracing everything that happens, not with passive resignation, but with active acceptance, seeing each event as a necessary thread in the tapestry of your life. When you apply this to your boundaries, it transforms the entire experience. A test of your limits is no longer an attack to be feared, but a drill to be welcomed, an opportunity to prove the strength of the inner citadel you have been building. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Your practice of Amor Fati is that fire, consuming the dead wood of resentment and converting it into the pure light of character. Imagine your friend cancels your dinner at the last minute. The initial impression is one of disappointment, even annoyance. Your old pattern might be to feel slighted, to stew in the feeling that your time was not valued. This is the moment to love your fate. You consciously reframe the event. This is not a personal dismissal. It is a gift of unexpected solitude. It is a free evening to read, to reflect, to rest, to strengthen the very boundaries that protect your peace. The cancellation did not harm you. Your judgment about the cancellation did. By loving the event itself, you disarm it completely. You remain unviolated because you have chosen to see the benefit in the test. Where in your own life did you recently feel a boundary was pushed? A demanding request, an unkind word, a change of plans? Can you find the courage to reframe that single event not as a misfortune, but as a necessary and even beneficial drill for your spirit? See the hidden gift it offered you, the chance to practice your composure, to affirm your values, to stand firm in your inner citadel. This shift in perception is the final, unassailable layer of your invisible boundaries. Your intense frustration over a broken promise or a harsh word can feel like the center of the entire universe. Now shrink that feeling down to its true size. The Stoics practiced an exercise they called the view from above, a mental shift to see your life from a cosmic vantage point. Picture yourself rising up, and away. You look down and see your street, then your city, then the whole country as a patchwork on the globe. The earth itself becomes a pale blue dot, a single speck of dust in an infinite, silent cosmos. From here, that argument, that moment of disrespect, what is it? Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this, writing of the vast deserts of time and the universe, and how all our noisy dramas are but a fleeting whisper. The person who offended you, and you yourself, are two tiny souls sharing a brief moment on a small rock orbiting an average star. This is not meant to diminish your life, but to put its challenges into a liberating perspective. That social slight which felt so large and painful now appears as a minuscule event, lost in the grand scale of existence. This cosmic view does not make your boundaries unimportant. On the contrary, it makes your inner peace the most important thing you possess, because it is your entire world within that vastness. The next time you feel a boundary being pressed, when the heat of indignation starts to rise, pause for just 10 seconds. Close your eyes and take that mental flight. See the pettiness of the conflict from 1,000 miles high. Watch as the emotional charge simply dissipates, leaving behind only the clear, calm certainty of where you end and the world begins. This is the ultimate detachment, the final assurance that no external event is large enough to breach the inner citadel you have so carefully built. Every small action you take is either a brick in your wall or a crack in your foundation. Your invisible boundaries are not built in a single grand declaration, but in the quiet, moment-to-moment choices of your daily life. The Stoics called this intentionality, the practice of acting with purpose and awareness, ensuring every single thing you do aligns with the principles you claim to hold dear. Haphazard, reactive action is an open invitation to chaos and disrespect because it signals to the world and to yourself that you are not truly in command of your own territory. Epictetus gave a simple but profound instruction when you are about to undertake some action. Remind yourself what kind of action it is. Begin by considering its end. You are not just performing a task, you are affirming a standard. Take the simple act of checking your email, doing it mindlessly, reacting to every ping and notification throughout the day, surrenders your focus and peace to the whims of others. Your attention is no longer your own, but performing that same action with intention, perhaps at 2 set times you have chosen, transforms it. You are no longer a passive recipient, you are an active manager of your own mind and time. You approach your inbox from a position of strength, deciding when to engage and on what terms. This subtle shift communicates a powerful boundary without a word being spoken. It tells the world that your inner peace is not available for interruption at any moment. What is one small, routine action you perform today that usually feels automatic? It could be how you start your morning or how you transition from work to home. For just this one action, commit to performing it with your full, deliberate attention. Feel the difference between being swept along by habit and choosing to act with purpose. This is how you build a life where your actions consistently reflect the boundaries you wish to embody, creating a presence so grounded that others cannot help but respect the space you occupy. You cannot defend a boundary you cannot see. The most formidable walls of your inner citadel are built not just on principle, but on a profound and intimate knowledge of your own landscape. The Stoics called this practice self-examination, a daily, honest audit of your own mind. It is the quiet work of mapping your triggers, understanding your deep-seated values, and spotting the subtle biases that can lead you to betray your own limits before anyone else even has the chance. Seneca wrote that we should spend time in our own company each day, for how can you ever master yourself if you do not first know who you are? This self-awareness is the unshakable anchor for every boundary you set. Without it, your limits are just arbitrary rules, easily toppled by the first wave of social pressure or internal doubt. When you know yourself, your boundaries become an authentic expression of your character, not a reactive defense against the world. Consider someone who constantly feels drained and irritable after social gatherings. They might blame others for being too demanding, but through self-examination during a quiet evening review, they realize the truth. Their boundary was not crossed by the people, but by their own failure to honor their genuine need for periods of quiet and solitude to recharge. The violation occurred the moment they said yes when their entire being was whispering no. This is the power of self-knowledge. It allows you to set boundaries that are proactive and rooted in your nature, rather than reactive and fueled by resentment. Tonight, before sleep, try this simple Stoic exercise. Look back on your day and ask yourself 2 questions. When did my inner boundary feel strongest and most peaceful? And when did it feel weak or compromised? Do not judge the answers, simply observe them. Was it when you held your tongue in a pointless debate? Or was it when you scrolled through news feeds for an hour, sacrificing your mental peace? This nightly review sharpens your vision, turning the foggy outline of your limits into a clear, unmistakable line in the sand that you and everyone else can finally see. Your attention is the currency your inner citadel runs on. What you choose to focus on is what you ultimately empower and expand within your life. Guarding your focus is not just a productivity hack, it is the most fundamental boundary you can set because it determines the very quality of your inner world. The Stoics understood this deeply, warning against scattering our soul on the things that are not our proper concern. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Every moment you spend mentally rehearsing a grievance or anxiously speculating about a future you cannot control, you are dipping the fabric of your consciousness into a darker hue. You are voluntarily handing over your most precious resource, your own mental energy, to forces outside your command. This is a profound violation of your own boundaries from the inside out. Think of a colleague who made a careless, negative comment about your work. The event itself lasted only a second. But if you spend the next 3 hours replaying their words, imagining retorts, and feeding your indignation, who has truly crossed your boundary? The colleague spoke, but you are the one who has invited their words to live rent-free in your mind, draining your energy and staining your peace. You have scattered your soul on something that is not your concern, their opinion, and in doing so, you have neglected what is your concern, your own reasoned judgment and emotional equilibrium. The practice is to be ruthlessly selective with your attention. Conserve your mental energy for what truly matters, for your own judgments and virtuous actions. This means consciously withdrawing your focus from the digital noise, from the petty dramas, and from the unchangeable past. It means directing that reclaimed energy toward building your character, fulfilling your duties, and appreciating the present moment. So take a brief audit of your own attention economy right now. What is one source, perhaps a social media feed, a news cycle, or even a recurring worry, that consistently drains your attention without offering anything of value in return? Simply naming it is the first step in reclaiming your sovereignty and reinforcing the most critical boundary of all, the one that guards the gate of your own mind. Your sense of self should not be a prize others can hand you or take away. This is the ultimate test of your invisible boundaries, the practice of equanimity in the face of praise and blame. When your inner peace is rattled equally by a compliment and a criticism, it reveals a crack in your foundation, a place where your self-worth is still outsourced. The Stoic ideal is to remain steady and unmoved by these external judgments, creating a boundary so profound that others simply cannot manipulate your emotional state. Epictetus offered a clear directive: if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, "He does not know my other faults, else he would not have mentioned only these." This is not about arrogance, but about a deep, unshakable self-knowledge that renders both flattery and slander powerless. The goal is to be neither elated by praise nor dejected by blame, because your value is an internal fact, not an external opinion. Consider an artist who creates purely for the sake of the art itself. They pour their vision and virtue into their work, a process entirely within their control. When a glowing review is published, they acknowledge it with gratitude but do not let it inflate their ego. Their fulfillment came from the act of creation. When a scathing critique appears, they read it for any potential useful feedback, but they do not let it shatter their spirit. The work and the integrity behind it remains unchanged. The reviews are outside their control, mere weather patterns passing over the solid mountain of their purpose. Their boundary is the understanding that their art's true worth was established the moment they completed it according to their own standards. Can you recall the last time a piece of praise lifted your mood for hours, or a critical comment ruined your afternoon? That emotional swing is a signal, a quiet indicator that you momentarily handed the keys to your inner citadel to someone else. The practice of equanimity asks you to take those keys back, to find that unshakable ground where you alone decide what defines you. True strength is not found in comfort, but in the deliberate choice to leave it behind. The Stoics engaged in a powerful practice known as voluntary discomfort, a way to build resilience by willingly embracing small hardships. This is not about punishing yourself, but about training your soul to be indifferent to the very things that often make our boundaries weak. Comfort can become a cage, making us fear any disturbance to our ease and willing to compromise our principles to maintain it. By occasionally choosing the harder path, you inoculate yourself against the fear of lack or inconvenience that others might use to manipulate you. Seneca, a man of immense wealth, would deliberately practice poverty. He would sleep on a hard bed, wear simple clothing, and eat plain food for days at a time. His purpose was to prove to himself that his happiness was not dependent on his luxurious surroundings. He was strengthening his inner citadel, ensuring that no external condition could force him to betray his virtues. Think of your own daily routines. What if you chose to walk to the store instead of driving on a cool morning? You are not just getting exercise, you are engaging in a profound exercise of will. With each step, you are reaffirming that your peace does not depend on perfect convenience. You are building a tolerance for minor discomfort that translates directly into stronger boundaries. When a difficult conversation arises, you will not avoid it for the sake of a comfortable silence. When an unreasonable demand is made, you will not comply simply to avoid the discomfort of saying no. Your voluntary practice has hardened you against the pressure to take the easy way out. This week, can you introduce one small, voluntary discomfort into your own life? Perhaps it is taking a slightly cooler shower or foregoing a snack you routinely crave. In that conscious choice, you are not denying yourself pleasure. You are claiming a far greater prize, the unshakable knowledge that your inner peace is independent of your outer conditions. Anxiety about tomorrow and regret over yesterday are silent invasions of your mental space. You are physically here, but your mind is held hostage in a time that does not exist, leaving your present moment completely undefended. The Stoic response is to build a boundary around the now, to live so fully in the present moment that the ghosts of past and future cannot find a way in. This is the only slice of time that is truly and absolutely yours to command. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this with piercing clarity, reminding himself of the shortness of life, that it is a single point, and that the present is all we can lose. You lose it by not living there. When you are mentally rehearsing a difficult conversation scheduled for next week, you have abandoned the quiet evening with your family. Your body is at the dinner table, but your mind is in a future conference room, and in that act, you have allowed a future possibility to breach the peace of your current reality. The boundary is not about ignoring the future, but about engaging with it wisely. You can plan for the meeting, but then you must return your full attention to the person in front of you. The practice of full presence is the ultimate act of sovereignty over your own life. It declares that this moment, this single breath, is your unassailable territory. Can you grant yourself the gift of 5 minutes today, completely free from the pull of past and future? Set a timer if you must. For those 300 seconds, do nothing but observe the world directly in front of you. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Listen to the subtle sounds in the room. Notice the quality of the light. In that simple exercise, you are not just relaxing, you are actively manning the walls of your inner citadel. training your focus to remain within the only boundary of time that you were ever meant to defend. This rational and social nature is your ultimate compass for every boundary you set. For the Stoics, living in accordance with nature was the highest good, and for us, it becomes the most authoritative guide. Your nature is not merely to eat and breathe, but to think clearly and to belong to a community of other reasoning beings. When you act from this core, your limits are no longer arbitrary rules, but natural, harmonious extensions of who you are designed to be. They feel right to you, and because of that, others intuitively recognize and respect them. This process of recognizing our shared nature is what the Stoics called oikeiosis, the understanding that we are all connected parts of a greater whole. Your well-being is intertwined with the well-being of the community. A boundary that serves only you is a wall, but a boundary that serves the common good becomes a bridge. Imagine a neighborhood where every person takes responsibility for their own property and shows consideration for their neighbors. One person tends their garden, another shovels a shared walkway, a third offers a friendly wave. No one posts harsh signs or makes angry demands. The mutual respect is palpable, a quiet agreement that emerges not from enforced rules, but from each individual acting virtuously for the benefit of all. Their rational nature guides them to maintain their own space, and their social nature moves them to contribute to the collective peace. In such an environment, a person who acts disruptively stands out immediately, not because they broke a written law, but because they violated the unwritten, natural law of the community. Their behavior feels instinctively wrong because it clashes with the harmonious order everyone else is upholding. This is the power of aligning your personal boundaries with a universal principle. Your actions then carry a weight and a clarity that mere words can never achieve. So what is one small action you can take today that aligns your rational self-interest with the common good? Perhaps it is patiently listening to a colleague instead of interrupting, fulfilling a promise you made, or simply offering your full attention in a conversation. In that single, deliberate act, you are not just setting a boundary, you are honoring your true nature and reinforcing the very fabric of a respectful world. A rigid plan is a fragile one, destined to shatter against the unpredictable currents of life. The Stoics understood this, and they developed a simple mental safeguard known as the reserved clause. This is not a statement you make aloud to others, but a quiet addendum you attach to your own intentions. When you form a plan, you internally add the phrase, "fate permitting," or "if nothing prevents me." This is not a sign of weak commitment or a lack of ambition. It is a profound act of wisdom, a conscious acknowledgement that your will is only one part of a vast and interconnected world. You are committing fully to your role while simultaneously releasing your grip on the final outcome, which was never yours to command in the first place. Seneca advised us to arrange our affairs in a way that allows for the unexpected. For the man who is prepared has half the battle won. The reserved clause is that preparation. It builds a buffer of acceptance around your plans, protecting your inner peace from the shock of disruption. Imagine you plan to meet a close friend for coffee on Saturday. You are genuinely looking forward to it. With the reserved clause in mind, you hold that plan with an open hand. You think, "I will be there at 10, fate permitting." When Saturday arrives, your friend calls, sick with a cold, and needs to cancel. Without the reserved clause, this change can feel like a personal disappointment, a violation of your expectation. You might feel frustrated, your peaceful morning suddenly soured. But with the reserved clause already in place, the cancellation is not a breach of your peace. It is simply fate exercising its permission. The event unfolded exactly as you had already accepted it might. Your plan was not broken. It was simply one of the possibilities you had already made room for. Your inner citadel remains undisturbed because you never handed the keys to your serenity over to an external event. This week, you have a plan. Perhaps it is a work goal, a gym session, or a phone call you intend to make. Take a quiet moment and apply the reserved clause to it. Mentally affirm your commitment to do your part while softly adding, "if nothing prevents me." Feel the subtle but powerful shift that occurs, the lightness that comes from striving without straining, from intending without demanding. Your body is a silent broadcast of your inner citadel's strength. The very way you hold yourself, the steadiness of your gaze, and the pace of your movements transmit a continuous signal to the world about the boundaries you keep within. A slouched posture and a darting glance whisper of uncertain territory, easily crossed, but a calm, upright, and deliberate physical presence communicates a fortress of the mind that others intuitively recognize and respect. The Stoics envisioned their ideal sage as possessing a certain bearing, not one of arrogance but of unshakable composure. This was not about vanity, but about virtue made visible, a physical manifestation of a soul ordered by reason. Think of two people entering a crowded room. One moves quickly, their shoulders slightly hunched, their eyes scanning the faces for approval or threat. Their energy is nervous, porous. The other enters at a measured pace, their spine tall but not rigid, their gaze resting calmly on the space before them. They are not seeking permission to occupy the room, they are simply occupying it fully and peacefully. Which person's space is more likely to be honored? The second individual's composure creates an invisible field of respect, not through intimidation, but through the sheer gravity of their self-contained presence. Your body can learn this language of quiet authority. It starts with a single, conscious adjustment. For the rest of today, practice the deliberate act of slowing your speech. Notice the natural urge to rush, to fill silences, to explain yourself quickly. Instead, allow your words to find their own grounded pace. This simple shift does more than just make you easier to understand. It broadcasts an internal reality that your thoughts are considered, your time is valuable, and your peace is not something to be rushed through. This is your physical boundary in action, a non-verbal declaration that you are at home within yourself. There is a hidden strength in contemplating what you could lose. The Stoics practiced a powerful exercise known as premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization, and it has nothing to do with pessimism. This is the intentional act of imagining the temporary nature of the people, the peace, and the respect you currently enjoy. By mentally rehearsing their loss, you do not invite misfortune, you inoculate your heart against the fear of it, and in doing so, you forge a gratitude so profound it makes you virtually unshakable. Seneca advised us to remind ourselves that our dearest possessions are merely on loan, that we should love all our dear ones, but always with the thought that we have no promise that we may keep them forever. This is not a cold-hearted exercise, it is the warmest possible appreciation for the present moment. Think of a friend whose loyalty you have never questioned. Now, for just a moment, visualize a world where that trust was broken. Imagine the hollow feeling of a promise shattered, the silence where their support used to be. Do not dwell in the pain, but let the sharpness of that imagined loss wash over you. Now, open your eyes to the reality where that friend is still steadfastly by your side. Feel the surge of genuine, deep gratitude for their presence. That loyalty, which you may have taken for granted moments ago, now feels like a solid, precious gift. Your appreciation for that relationship, for the boundary of trust you share, has been instantly and powerfully reinforced. You are no longer needy for their loyalty because you are so vividly aware of its incredible value. Your inner citadel grows stronger because your peace is no longer dependent on the blind assumption that things will always be this way. You have faced the possibility of change, and in that confrontation, you have discovered a bottomless well of thankfulness for what is. Try this with one single blessing in your life today, perhaps the simple peace of a quiet morning or the health that allows you to move freely. Briefly imagine its absence and then return to the present. The world you come back to will feel richer, and your grasp on it will be lighter, freer, and infinitely more resilient. Your energy is a finite resource, and every concern demands its share. The ancient Stoics visualized this through a simple yet profound model, the circles of concern. Picture your existence as a series of concentric rings. At the very center is the circle of your mind, your judgments and your choices. This is your absolute domain. The next ring holds your immediate responsibilities, your health, your family, your work. Further out lie your community, your nation, and finally, the entire human race. The philosopher Hierocles taught that our duty is to draw these outer circles inward, to bring a sense of kinship to all people. But he also understood the critical first step. You must stand firm in your center before you can effectively help anyone else. The boundary you must guard is the line between what you care about and where you can actually exert meaningful influence. When you over-identify with the outermost rings, when you pour your mental and emotional energy into global crises you cannot solve or distant dramas you cannot affect, you are effectively abandoning your post at the center of your own life. Your energy drains away, and your personal boundaries become weak and porous because you have nothing left to defend them with. Consider the difference between two responses to a troubling news headline. One person becomes consumed by outrage, spending hours in online debates, their stomach in knots over events unfolding 1,000 miles away. Their entire day is poisoned, their peace sacrificed at the altar of a concern they cannot change. Another person sees the same headline, feels a pang of compassion, and then consciously turns their attention to their own circle of influence. They donate to a relevant charity if they can, or they simply resolve to bring more kindness into their immediate world. They tend to their own garden, both literally and metaphorically. The first person's boundaries are shattered because they have given their inner citadel over to a storm they cannot calm. The second person's boundaries remain strong because their energy is invested where it can actually bear fruit. Where are you spending your emotional currency? Take a moment to mentally sketch your own circles. Now look at the outer rings, at those vast concerns for the world. Can you identify just one, a political outcome, a celebrity scandal, a distant conflict that you can consciously release from your mental grip today? Letting it go is not an act of indifference, but an act of supreme stewardship over your own soul. It is you deciding that your peace is too precious to be spent on a battle you cannot fight. Your phone buzzes with a text and your stomach immediately tightens. A single sentence on a screen has just stormed the gates of your peace. This is the moment of truth, the split second where an unguarded impulse can dismantle everything you have built. The Stoics identified this exact juncture as the critical battlefield for our inner citadel, the discipline of impulse. It is the practice of inserting a deliberate pause between the external trigger and your internal, and then external, reaction. In that pause, your freedom is reclaimed. Epictetus was direct in his instruction. Do not be carried away by the vividness of its impression, but say, "Wait for me a little, O impression." Allow me to see who you are and what you represent. Allow me to test you. That "wait for me a little" is the most powerful boundary you will ever set. It is you, standing at the gate of your own mind, refusing to let a mere impression barge in and take command. Automatic reactions are breaches we commit against ourselves. We feel a flash of anger and fire off a sharp email. We sense a moment of social pressure and agree to a commitment we already resent. In these moments, we are not setting boundaries. We are proving that our inner state is easily hijacked by the outside world. The discipline of impulse reverses this. It says that the event may be outside your control, but the space between that event and your answer belongs entirely to you. Consider that provocative text. The initial impression is one of offense. The urge to craft a cutting reply is almost a physical pull. This is where you exercise your sovereignty. You see the message, you feel the reaction rise, and you consciously decide, I will not reply for 1 hour. You place the phone down, you walk away. In that hour, the raw emotion settles, the initial vividness of the impression fades, and you can see the words for what they are, not as a world-ending attack, but as a data point, a reflection of the sender's state of mind. When you finally return to the message, you are no longer a reactor, you are a responder. You can choose a reply rooted in reason, perhaps a simple question for clarification, or even no reply at all. The boundary was held not by blocking the message, but by mastering your own impulse to engage on its chaotic terms. Tomorrow you will be tested. A comment will be made, a demand will be issued, a plan will change. Your practice is to implement a one-breath pause. Before the words leave your mouth or your fingers touch the keyboard, stop. Take one single conscious breath. In that brief space, you are not being passive, you are being powerfully active. You are testing the impression, you are guarding your gate, and you are choosing the response that fortifies your inner citadel, rather than the reaction that tears it down. Your personal values are the silent architects of your invisible boundaries. When you distill your life down to a handful of non-negotiable principles, you install an automatic guidance system for everything you allow in and everything you keep out. A value is not a vague ideal, it is a clear line in the sand of your soul. If integrity is your compass, then a dishonest proposal will simply fail to compute. If peace is your foundation, then a dramatic argument will find no foothold in your world. Your decisions stop being difficult negotiations and start being simple affirmations of who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "Never value anything as being to your own interest which compels you to break your word, to abandon your self-respect, to hate, suspect, or curse anyone, to play a part, or to cover your head with a desire for things that require walls and curtains." He understood that a life built on principle is a life that naturally repels what is incompatible with it. Consider someone who holds honesty as a core value. They find themselves in a conversation where a friend begins to gossip, tearing down a mutual acquaintance. The old, unguarded self might feel pressured to nod along, to join in, to maintain social harmony. But the self that has defined its values sees the situation with perfect clarity. This conversation conflicts with my principle of honesty. To remain here would be to violate my own boundary. And so they do not need to launch a moral lecture or make a scene. They can simply, gracefully find a way to exit the discussion. They might change the subject with a kind remark or politely excuse themselves. The boundary was upheld not by a confrontation but by a prior commitment. The person living by their values is like a tuned instrument. It naturally resonates at a certain frequency and falls silent when the note is wrong. So what are the notes you are tuned to? Take a moment, right now if you can, and write down your top 3 core values. Not what you think they should be, but what you discover when you ask, what principles are so important to me that to act against them would feel like a betrayal of myself? Is it loyalty, courage, compassion, growth? Write just 3 words on a piece of paper. This simple act transforms abstract ideals into the active, invisible fences that will guard your peace from this moment forward. A fortress with no gates is not a sanctuary, but a prison. The Stoics, far from being isolated thinkers, saw themselves as citizens of the world. Their pursuit of an inner citadel was never meant to be an escape from society, but the very thing that made them capable of serving it without crumbling under the weight. Strong personal boundaries are the prerequisite for healthy, sustained social contribution. They are the walls that allow you to open the gates without fear of being overrun. Seneca beautifully captured this essential balance, writing that we should alternate between solitude and the crowd, for the one will bring the desire for people, the other for ourselves, and each will be a remedy for the other. Solitude, the time spent strengthening your inner boundaries, is what refuels your capacity for the crowd. It is not a rejection of others, but a renewal of the self you offer to them. Think of a caregiver, someone who dedicates their days to supporting an ailing family member. If they pour out every ounce of their energy without ever refilling their own cup, a quiet resentment will inevitably begin to boil. Their care, once given freely, becomes a burden, their tone short, their presence strained. They have allowed their boundary to dissolve, and in doing so, they have harmed both themselves and the very person they wish to serve. Now imagine that same caregiver consciously setting a boundary. They commit to 1 hour of quiet reading each evening, or they ask another family member to help one afternoon a week. This is not an act of selfishness, but of profound wisdom. By honoring their own need for restoration, they ensure that the care they give comes from a well of genuine compassion, not from a drained and bitter reservoir. Their boundary is what makes their service sustainable and virtuous. How could your own capacity to help others be transformed if you first fortified your personal limits? When you know where you end, you can truly begin to contribute without losing yourself in the process. This is the social duty of a strong boundary, creating a self that is resilient enough to be generous and a peace that is stable enough to be shared. A desperate grip on the way things are will always leave you vulnerable. The very act of clinging creates a crack in your inner citadel, a point of leverage that the world can use to pull you off balance. Stoicism teaches a profound counterintuitive truth that your strength is not found in holding on, but in the serene acceptance that all things are in a state of flux. Marcus Aurelius reflected on the universe as a river of constant becoming, where everything you see is changing before your eyes, and you yourself are in a continuous process of alteration. This is not a gloomy thought, but a liberating one. When you embrace the fact that nothing is permanent, not your friendships, not your job, not even your own current state of mind, you learn to hold everything with an open hand. You enjoy the moment without demanding that it last forever. This perspective is the ultimate defense against manipulation, because if you are not afraid of losing something, no one can threaten to take it away. Consider a long-standing friendship that has begun to change. Your lives have taken different paths. The conversations are not as effortless as they once were. The weak boundary response is to cling desperately, to try and force the connection back into its old shape, to feel hurt and resentful as it naturally evolves. This clinging exhausts you and poisons the memory of what was. The strong boundary, built on acceptance, allows you to see this change not as a failure, but as part of the river's flow. You can appreciate the friendship for what it was, accept what it is now with grace, and wish your friend well on their journey without needing them to remain unchanged for your comfort. Your peace is no longer held hostage by the demand for permanence, so look closely at your own life. What is one thing, one situation, or even one expectation you are clinging to with a white-knuckled grip? It might be a particular outcome at work, a specific idea of how a relationship should be, or even the desire for your own mood to remain constant. For just this week, practice releasing it. Not by abandoning care, but by consciously acknowledging its temporary nature. Watch what happens to your sense of solidity when you stop fighting the current and learn to float. Your strength is measured not when others are kind, but when they are not. Responding to disrespect with your own virtue is the ultimate test of your inner citadel's integrity. This may seem counterintuitive, as if you are rewarding bad behavior, but the Stoic approach to kindness is something entirely different. It is not a surrender or a plea for approval. It is a conscious, principled choice that actively disarms aggression and, most importantly, preserves the peace within your own walls. Marcus Aurelius directed himself to tolerate the intolerant, a quiet command to meet chaos with an unshakable calm. Your kindness in this context becomes a boundary because it declares that another person's poor behavior cannot dictate your own. You remain the sole author of your actions. Consider a colleague who speaks to you with sharp, condescending words. The automatic reaction is to mirror that energy, to respond with a cutting remark of your own. But in that moment, you are letting their disorder set the tone for your inner world. You have handed them the keys to your emotional state. Now, picture the same scenario with a different response. You listen, you pause, and you reply with a simple, measured tone. You might even wish them well with their day. This is not about being false. It is about being so grounded in your own principles that their storm cannot uproot you. By refusing to engage in their hostility, you have not lost the encounter. You have won a far greater victory. You have retained all of your power, and your inner peace remains completely untouched. That calm, virtuous response is a silent, immovable wall they simply cannot breach. Tomorrow, you will undoubtedly encounter someone who tests your patience, perhaps a rude stranger or a demanding relative. Your practice is to offer one small, genuine act of kindness. It does not need to be grand. It could be holding a door open or simply offering a neutral, polite thank you. In that deliberate action, you are not weakening your position, you are fortifying it. You are proving to yourself that your character is yours to command, regardless of the weather outside. The words you whisper to yourself in the quiet of your mind build the foundation every other boundary rests upon. This internal dialogue is your most intimate frontier, a private conversation that either fortifies your inner citadel or leaves its gates wide open. How you speak to yourself sets the unspoken standard for how the world is permitted to treat you. The Stoics understood that our opinions, as Epictetus taught, are not mere thoughts, but the very architects of our reality. He insisted that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. When your internal narrative is one of self-doubt or harsh criticism, you are essentially broadcasting a signal of low sovereignty, an invitation for external forces to occupy that same space of disrespect. If you constantly tell yourself you are not capable or that you do not deserve respect, why would anyone else arrive at a different conclusion? This is not mystical thinking. It is a simple matter of the energy you project from within. The practice, then, is to become the vigilant guardian of this inner dialogue, monitoring its currents and guiding it relentlessly toward reason and compassion. It means catching the thought, "I am such a failure for that mistake," and consciously, gently reframing it. The new narrative might sound like, "I made a human error, and it has provided a clear lesson for my growth." You are not lying to yourself. You are choosing the interpretation that serves your strength rather than your weakness. Consider the moment a major challenge lands in your lap. The automatic, unchallenged thought might be, "I cannot handle this." This is a breach of your own inner boundary before you have even begun. Now apply the Stoic reframe. "This is a test of my virtue." This simple shift in language is a profound act of boundary setting. It moves you from a position of victimhood to one of agency. You are no longer a target of circumstance, but a student in the classroom of life, presented with a drill to strengthen your resilience, your patience, and your courage. The external challenge remains the same, but your relationship to it has been utterly transformed, and from that transformed inner state, you will respond with a composure that others will feel and instinctively honor. So today, your practice is one of quiet observation and gentle correction. Notice just one piece of negative self-talk that arises. It might be a thought about your appearance, your competence, or your worth. The moment you hear it, do not fight it. Simply acknowledge its presence, and then, with the kindness you would offer a dear friend, offer a truer, more reasonable alternative. This is not about building arrogance, but about establishing the fundamental self-respect that makes every other boundary possible and unbreachable. This final boundary is the one that gives meaning to all the others. The Stoics practiced a profound meditation known as Memento Mori, a constant remembrance of your own mortality. It sounds dark, but its purpose is intensely life-affirming. It is the ultimate tool for prioritizing what truly matters and shedding the trivial anxieties and social pressures that constantly weaken your resolve. The awareness that your time is finite acts like a filter, instantly clarifying which commitments are worthy of your precious energy and which are merely noise. Seneca wrote that life is long enough if you know how to use it, arguing the problem is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it. When you hold the reality of your death in mind, the courage to say no to things that do not align with your core values arises naturally. Why would you spend your limited days on pursuits that drain your soul or in the company of those who disrespect your peace? Imagine looking back from your deathbed on a current struggle where your boundaries feel weak. That social obligation you dread fulfilling, that compromise of your integrity to avoid conflict, that resentment you have been carrying for years. From the vantage point of your final moments, how significant would those concerns truly be? The pettiness falls away, leaving only the stark, beautiful question of whether you lived with courage and authenticity. Your death becomes the most compassionate teacher, not of fear but of focus. It whispers that the time to build your inner citadel is now, not someday in a future that is not promised. What is one thing you would immediately stop worrying about, one commitment you would gracefully decline, if you fully embraced the truth that your days are numbered? The fortress was never meant to be built of stone and mortar, but of character and conviction. We have journeyed through the core of Stoic wisdom, from the foundational dichotomy of control to the unbreachable walls of the inner citadel. We learned that our power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering our judgments, our desires, and our responses. We discovered that boundaries are not fences we build against the world, but the unwavering ground we stand upon within it, a ground paved by virtuous action, disciplined attention, and a profound acceptance of what is. This is the quiet achievement of self-mastery, a project that begins and ends within the privacy of your own mind. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who knew the weight of endless demands, left us with a guiding light. He wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. And the peace that is thus attained," he continues, "is the tranquil mind, the soul freed from passions." This is the ultimate promise. Your tranquility is not found in reshaping the world to your liking, but in accepting the world as it is, while virtuously managing your own role within it. The invisible boundaries that command instant respect are the natural byproduct of this inner order. So now the choice is yours. Do not try to change everything at once. Look back over these principles and choose just one. Perhaps it is the practice of withholding assent from a negative impression, or the discipline of a one-breath pause before you react. Carry this single practice with you for the next 7 days. Observe the subtle shift in your peace, the new gravity others sense in your presence. Then return here and share what you discovered. Your journey and your questions help us all grow. Let us continue this conversation on how to live a life of Stoic strength together.